Welcome to the Just Jim radio show. I'm so glad to be here. It's Just Jim this week. I'm bringing some inspiration, some information, some ideas, some concepts, hopefully some openings and opportunities for you to be able to experience yourself a little more fully, a little more fulfillment in life, a little more joy, peace, beauty, freedom. We certainly can use more of that in our lives, that's for sure. And there are so many ways to do that, and yet we do that on this show through interviews, through conversations with others, through a dialogue about a topic. This week we're going to have a bit of a dialogue around the service to the soul. It's got a couple of terms in it that can be very interesting to discuss. Not being of service, but service to the soul, your soul. Being of service can be frequently seen as giving or volunteering, giving to someone or to something so it benefits them or the organization that it's involved in. Being of service really is about giving and being in your life. Serving the soul, on the other hand, or in a slightly different way, is the reason why we're here. Yes, here in our lives, why we're here being who we're being. There's that core piece of who we are being brought into each and every thought, each and every feeling, each and every action we take. And so trusting that inner knowing, trusting that piece and part of who we are as we make our way through our lives. We have our workplace where we bring ourselves to that, or our hobbies. We have our families, our relationships, whether they're friendships, whether they're a marriage, a partnership, or we're just, enjoying somebody else's company. It's the deepest part of us, not just our heart and our love, but our soul that reflects through us, our spirit expressed into our lives, that makes a difference. And most importantly, it makes a difference in who and how we are being in every moment. Not what we're doing, but who we're being in that moment of doing. Because doing, that's the activities of our days. We've always got something to do. we have a hard time keeping up with all the things we need to do. And yet what makes a difference in how we experience what we're doing, ourselves, each other, the world, is what we're being while we're doing that. And so being of service to the soul, there's that word soul again. It sounds religious almost, sounds spiritual, even mystical to some degree. Our soul is who we are at the deepest level of our spirit. It's who we are metaphysically, above the physical. It's who we are spiritually, living spiritually. It's having our spirit bring its influence, our inner knowing, our inner being, our inner truth, into and through this world we live in, the physical world, and help us rise above it, above the physical. Metaphysical literally means above the physical. Spirituality, living spiritually. And so the goal of the soul, I like that one. I'll have to write that one down. The goal of the soul is to live spiritually above the physical. Metaphysical spirituality. The heart is the life-giving force to the body and of love. The soul is the life-giving force to the spirit and the inspiration of our expression, what we bring into the world, therefore what we experience. So that core of our being, no matter what you believe, no matter what you see, no matter how you live, whatever philosophy, religion, dogma, creed, it isn't about that. It's about you. And what really matters at the very core of your being, it's that urge within you that makes life what it is and makes it purposeful and meaningful. And that reflects out into your heart and its love, into your thoughts, into your feelings, into your actions. It all starts at that very core of you, your soul. And to learn how to listen, to pay attention, to allow it to be the expression is important. Each breath we take, each heartbeat is another step in the evolution of our soul expressing and experiencing ourselves. It's why we're here. And what's so important is there's only one thing we need to get right. It's us, being just as we are, trusting and following our inner knowing. Right here, right now. Because who you are right here, right now, is perfect. Just the way you are. No getting around that. And so arrive, show up, and then stop for a moment and pay attention to where you are and what that is and how that looks. Look at what's important to you. Listen to what your heart's saying or your soul's whispering to you. It's that part of you that talks to you when you're not thinking. I know that doesn't happen very often, but it's that part of you that's talking to you when you're not thinking. It's that part of you that knows at the deepest level what's most important. As I said, it's not about what we're doing, it's how we're being that is in alignment with our purpose. And that's something we're supposed to do. It's something we already are. And so it's kind of like getting the things that are in our way out of the way long enough. It's like opening the dam of our spirit enough to where that starts to flow. And as that water begins to flow in the riverbed, our spirit begins to flow into our life more fully. It begins to bring its power and presence and energy and inspiration and flow to us. That's the soul's purpose, to ignite and awaken and initiate all kinds of aspects of who we are. Eckhart Tolle says the joy of being is the joy of being conscious. There's that word conscious. Conscious is pretty simple when you break it down to paying attention. Paying attention, though, not with our thoughts that have learned something or come to understand it, but paying attention with our spirit, with our awareness, with our inner knowing, with our soul. Each of us have an opportunity to make our way through life, to serve, to give, to do what we do. Serving is not about just volunteering or giving to someone else. It's about being who we are. And when we allow for our soul to guide that, it allows us to make a difference. For others, yes, it brings fulfillment to us as individuals. It brings freedom to our soul's expression. We each have an opportunity, whether it's at work, in our friendships, in our families, wherever we choose to be, especially for ourselves, to truly listen to that inner voice, because it has the truth that will set you free and allow you to experience yourself so much more fully. Allow yourself to trust what rises up within you on a daily basis and kind of keeps you going. Begin to look at your life rather than a series of obligations or commitments you've already made that you have to keep up with, as a blank canvas that you can begin to paint or add to every day. A garden that you're waiting to see the flowers burst from the ground, the seeds that you've planted. The seeds are your truth. The seeds are your expression. Your experience comes as the flowers burst through the ground and begin to bloom and blossom and show their beauty and brilliance. This is your soul making its way into your life, sharing your beauty and your brilliance in your words and your gestures and your activities and what you're creating in your work and whatever you bring of service to the world, but most importantly, service to your soul. It's so important that we take the time to allow our inner knowing to guide our thoughts, to allow our feelings to flow fully, and that our decisions and actions are not based on what we have to do or should do or could have done or might have done or supposed to do. All those words that just keep bringing tension or pressure or stress to our lives. When we're open into the flow of our soul and our spirit, it allows us to feel the freedom of who we are. And we are truly evolving. We are truly evolving. Take a look at your life and take a look at life 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Gosh, we're constantly changing and shifting. And so many of us are beginning to look at life so differently. One of my favorite authors is Gary Zukav. And he wrote a book that I really love called The Seat of the Soul. The seat of the soul, he says, is the hourglass point between energy and matter, between the unmanifest and the manifest. These are my words now. He says energy and matter. I say that it's the hourglass point between our spirit and our human self in the world. It's that point of connection that allows our inner knowing, our inner truth, our soul to bring through that center point of our heart into our lives, into our thoughts, into our feelings, into our actions, as we were speaking about. Gary brings up two things that I think are really important in the book, Seat of the Soul. He calls them multisensory perception and authentic power. Well, you know why authors say things like that, because then you'll have to read their book to understand what they're talking about. Not making fun of Gary. I like his book and I like what he has to say. And it's really more simple than it sounds. Multisensory perception is beyond our five senses. It means that we are looking at the non-physical, energetic, inspirational aspects of life and how we can see life differently as a result of it. We begin to use what I like to call our subtle senses. When we're looking with our physical eyes, we see what we see. If we're looking with our physical eyes, we're seeing the words on the line. If we're looking with our subtle senses, or our insight, our subtle sight, we're seeing what's between the lines. We're seeing the meaning of the words on the lines. We're feeling that, we're experiencing that within ourselves. So our multisensory perception allows us to, as we were talking about metaphysical spirituality, to live spiritually above the physical by seeing more than just what is. We can see the meaning of it for us. It isn't what it brings to us, but what we're able to see in it that allows us to find the meaning that we bring to it. It's beyond our five senses. It lets us explore, express, and experience the true essence of our soul. And we can do that with our ability to hear. We hear what's going on audibly around us in the world all the time. But when we listen within, we hear those whispers, we hear those knowings, we hear those truths that echo and remind us of what really matters. It's rising up within us that wants to be expressed and be brought forth by the inspiration of our spirit, of our soul. And by our intuition, this inner knowing of who we are. All of our senses have this more subtle sense of being in the world. We can feel and we can see and we can hear. We can sense life differently when we rise above the physicality of it, above the physical, metaphysically, and see life differently. And he talks about authentic power. Well, he says